Well, today we're going to make the very popular dessert profiteroles in chocolate sauce. And profiteroles are just a variation on choux pastry. And I have a few tips for you to make a successful choux pastry, whether you're making a savoury recipe, chocolate eclairs, or indeed the profiteroles we're making today. The first thing we do is into a saucepan you put 150 ml, that's a quarter pint of water. To the water we add 50 grams, that's 2 ounces of margarine, and we put that over the heat. Now you allow that to come to a brisk boil. Now what I suggest you do is you slowly melt the margarine in the butter first of all, and then allow it to come to a brisk boil. Once it is boiled, we're going to add the flour. And just a few words about the flour. In here I have saved 65 grams, that's 2.5 ounces of our Odlums strong flour. You could use the cream plain flour, but the strong flour, for those of you who are not familiar with it, has a higher gluten content than the cream or plain flour. And strong flour is very important for yeast baking. You need the gluten for the yeast. But I also find for pastry, you get a better result if you use the strong flour. So we have sieved the 65 grams into the bowl there. To that I'm going to add just a pinch of salt. And we'll have that ready now for the boiled liquid in just a few minutes. Now, if possible, don't allow the water to boil before the margarine has melted, because if the water boils before the margarine is melted, it's going to evaporate. Naturally enough, water that boils evaporates, and you're going to end up with less water in the recipe than you should have. Now, accuracy in the weights or amounts of ingredients you use is very important for a successful choux pastry. With some recipes you can, go a little over or a little under in your ingredients. Not so with choux pastry. It is important that you're accurate. Now I'm just lifting it from the heat there, from the gas, just to prevent it boiling before the margarine has melted. Because as I said, we don't want to lose any of that 150 ml or a quarter pint of water. So now, it helps, as I'm doing here, you just stir with the spoon to help the margarine to melt in the hot water. So there we have the margarine melted. We just put it back on the heat, bring it to a brisk boil, and when it's completely bubbling, as it is there, we're going to turn off the heat and we're going to remove it from the heat and add that sieved flour. We put that in. Now you must do this fairly quickly because you want to add the flour while the mixture is boiling, so that basically we're cooking the flour as well in the boiled liquid. That's important. Now you just mix well until you end up with a stiff dough. A rough looking dough, actually, that's how I describe it. It's rough looking, and it'll be shiny and smooth by the time the profiteroles go into the oven to bake. So that's what it looks like. Just that nice thick dough with that matte finish, and that finish will have changed by the time we put our choux pastry or profiteroles into the oven. You let that cool a little before adding the eggs, because naturally enough, if you put the beaten eggs into the hot mixture, the eggs will just scramble or curdle on you. Now I like to just lightly beat the 2 eggs I have here, and there's no need to go taking out the electric mixer. Just a fork will do into a small jug or a cup, and beat your 2 eggs. Now just to make sure that mixture is cool enough, a little tip, and that is just take your spoon and just break up the dough actually in the pot, so that you're allowing cooler air in there, so that will cool the mixture that bit quicker. Having done that, now we're going to add the eggs, and I normally add about 1 egg at a time, so just pour in roughly half the egg mixture and beat that well. Now as I've said, we're going to beat this until it is smooth and shiny, and it takes just a little bit of elbow grease and the wooden spoon to do this. Don't use a metal spoon, because depending on what your saucepan is made of, it can discolour your choux pastry. Another tip, I don't recommend you use an electric mixer, because if you use the electric mixer you can introduce too much air or air bubbles into the pastry, and that would mean you would have thin patches throughout your eclairs or your profiteroles after baking. And when you fill them then with the whipped cream or whatever, or custard, the thin patches would give way and you would have soakage or leakage indeed from the eclairs. So the old elbow grease and the wooden spoon is about the best bet. And I find with the small wooden spoon as I have here, I seem to have more control, and I just beat it that bit better. So there we have our choux pastry now ready for baking. And if I can just show you what I mean by the smooth, shiny mixture. There's the change in the mixture at this stage. Now, to shape the eclairs, you could just drop spoonfuls of the mixture. Just to give you an idea now, you could just drop spoonfuls of the mixture on a greased baking tray. But for speed and convenience, if you have an icing bag, it's a lot quicker and handier. Now, to fill your icing bag, just rest the bag over a small bowl or a jug. This applies to icing cakes or whatever. By resting it over the small bowl or the jug, you have your 2 hands free to work with, and you're not worried about the mixture filtering through the nozzle at the other end. Now we just scoop that off. I like to take it off the spoon first of all, and then we transfer it all into the jug. And you'll see it now coming in that lovely shiny mixture, and that's roughly the consistency it should be. And these will double in size during baking. It is important as well for successful eclairs or profiteroles as we're making today that your oven is at temperature. And eclairs or choux pastry is baked at a high temperature of 200 degrees centigrade, that's 400 degrees Fahrenheit, or gas mark 6. And it takes about 15 minutes for the oven to reach temperature, so I would generally put the oven on before I start making the eclairs. And also, as hot air rises, even with a fan oven, you put your eclairs or profiteroles to bake up towards the top of the oven. Now, ease your filling down from the top of the bag to the nozzle, and then just twist the filling from the top down and then just pipe it out. Now I have a star nozzle in here, it doesn't matter what size, whether it's a plain or a star you use. About a 1/2 inch nozzle is sufficient. In fact, the ones we have in the oven was done with a plain tube, so that we get a plainer one coming out in a few minutes. Now just pipe them out, leave a space between them because they do double in size during baking. So we're just going to squeeze out a few more, we might get another fellow in there. Now, if you have you'll have some mixture left over, as you see there. If you have, you could use a second tray. I'm going to use just 1 tray today to get these baked. But if you are using 2 trays, when you put them into the oven, halfway through baking, even in a fan oven, switch them round. The ones on top, down, and the ones down below, up on top. And do that very quickly. Now, we're going to put these into the preheated oven. And we're going to take out the ones we put in about 20 minutes ago. So now, as I say, we're going to put these into the oven and we're going to take out the ones we put in about 25 minutes ago. So over we go here. Oh, lovely. Wow. And there we have our profiteroles, beautifully risen, light balls of air. First thing now it's important to do when you take them from the oven, you need nearly rubber fingers for this, by the way, you must cut them as soon as they come off the hot tray to allow the steam to escape from the hollow centres. If you don't cut them, they're going to get soft and soggy. There we have our nice crisp profiteroles. By leaving them on the tray, it doesn't give them a chance to collapse or get soggy. So there we go. And you leave them then to go cold. And because they're just crusty cases with a hollow centre, they cool in about 10 minutes. And needless to say, we have some we made earlier and they have cooled, so we're going to fill them now in just a moment. We'll just get the last few on there, split them and on. Even at this stage they've started to go soft, the last few, so that's why it's worth mentioning to you here as well. If you're serving a lot of people and you need quite a few profiteroles, don't double the quantity of ingredients, do them twice, because if you double the quantities you're going to have soggy profiteroles by the time you get to the second tray load. So just as they are there, and then leave them to go completely cold. While they're cooling now, I'm going to make the chocolate sauce, and I'm doing a very simple chocolate sauce today. I'm going to put into the saucepan just a small carton of cream, if we can open it. Small carton of cream in over a low heat, and we're going to allow that to just come to the boil. Get the gas to stay on there for me. Okay, we're going to allow that to come to the boil. Then we're going to add 150 gram slab of Shamrock dark chocolate. So it helps if you have the chocolate broken up before you add it to the boiled cream. So I just like to break it up. Now you couldn't use milk chocolate as well, but I think the dark chocolate goes that bit better with the profiteroles. So we're going to leave that now and put it in when the mixture has boiled. Meanwhile, we're going to fill some of the cooled eclairs with some whipped cream, which we have here. So we'll just do a swap around. We'll put the hot ones aside for a moment, and we'll take over the cooled ones that we made just about an hour ago. There we go. We're going to fill them with cream, and then we're going to pile them in a pyramid, really, on the plate. So now you can, if you wish, pipe in the cream again, but I find it works just as well to just roughly pile it in with the spatula or the spoon. Just arrange your eclairs. Now you can go as little or as much cream as you wish, and we just watch the saucepan there. I can hear the cream starting to boil. We have another one. These are lovely, crisp and light. So by cutting them in time, as I've done, when they're still hot, they remain lovely and crispy. Now, just while we finish these off, just before we finish them off, I'm going to add the chocolate to the boiled cream. There it is, boiling. We're going to just add the chocolate to that. And by bringing the cream to the boil first, the chocolate will melt for you. So we just leave that for a moment. In fact, we might just give it a little stir to help it to convert to a chocolate sauce for us. See the way it's starting to melt already in the cream. There we go. We'll just allow that chocolate to melt a bit. And we'll finish off our eclairs, which we have here. Pile on more cream. Now you could, of course, fill these with custard or a coffee flavoured filling, but I think you can't beat just the traditional eclair. I'm going to pile them up now in a pyramid. And you know, it's amazing the number of people who use these now for wedding cakes. A big pile of chocolate profiteroles and chocolate sauce for the dessert at the wedding. But they do a huge, big tower of them in some hotels. Now we're just going to, there are two bases. Here we have another base. Pile that on. We'll give another stir here to our chocolate sauce. Turn off the cooker. That's just looking wonderful. So the tip there is boil your cream and add the chocolate to the boiled cream. Let me put the finishing touches to the last few of these. We'll try our balancing act. Now the medium-sized carton of cream should be sufficient for you if you're just wondering how much to buy to make these eclairs. And last but not least, we might get another one up on top there. We don't want our complete mountain to fall over, do we? Okay, now here we have the last one. We'll just take the last bit of cream from that, pile that in, and here we have our pyramid of profiteroles. Now we're just going to, whoa, I won't try and switch them. I think we'll just leave them as is. Voila. Now I'm just going to pour some of the sauce into a jug and just pour it over our wonderful profiteroles. Now you see how quickly it is to make that chocolate sauce. Absolutely amazing. And then just before serving, you can prepare them a few hours in advance and put them in the fridge as they are there. Then make up your chocolate sauce. You saw that only took about a minute at the most. Just pour on then your lovely chocolate sauce, and there we have our profiteroles. So I hope you've picked up a few tips from my preparation of the choux pastry, and that you'll make successful profiteroles and chocolate sauce, or indeed chocolate eclairs. So for now, for me, take care.